Welcome, Dr. Dain.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Hi, everybody around the world and in the room. Hi.
So this year, for the 10th annual Global Access Bars Day, we created basically the biggest weekend of change ever so far at Access Consciousness.
Oh my goodness, I had so many people after yesterday's bars class say, the world is different today. I'm like, I know, that was us. That's what we do.
So yesterday, we had literally the biggest Access Bars class ever, with over 3,600 people from all over the world. Lots of live people here in Houston with us, people joining from countries, grouping together, streaming in. Was that something that you've always asked for?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah. Oh man, what always happens for me when we talk about this is I look back at where I was 22 years ago in an office smaller than the stage, and having my bars run and how it changed my life. And then when that happened, I remember in that moment, I'm like, I want the world to know this is possible. Because I saw so many people in my life that were struggling. And see, the thing that bars did for me was like quite literally saved my life, but that's not enough of a description of it. What it did was, it took a guy who wanted to live like this and was only able to create this and showed him that this was possible. And there are no words for that. There are no words for going from total contraction to a sense of the space of possibilities where I remember I would get bars once a week. And the first time I got bars, I went from to, and I kept taking as many deep breaths as I could. And I was like, I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't go away. And so the next week, the space went like this. And then also I would get a tool to use each week, one of the Access Consciousness tools. And every time the space wanted to go like this, like it had in the past, it would go, oh, back to the space. And then the next week I would get bars and the space was like this. And I can't describe that to people. It's something you have to experience, And so at the point, I remember at a point a couple months into getting bars every single week where I had this thing where I was like, this would be so cool because what I had heard was when you run bars or when you do a process, like somewhere around 35,000 to 350,000 people get free of the fixed points of view you're letting go of because of your connections to them. And I thought, what would it be like to have a stadium of people? And I was like, wow, if we had a stadium of people, we could we could bring space to the world. And so, wow. So the answer is yes. But did I ever think it would happen? I mean, if you look back when I started 22 years ago, it was a different world. And it was a world that was much less oriented toward a space of possibilities, at least in my perspective and in working with people. And now it's like people are actually desiring it, which is what I've desired for the world forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday, you've said before that the gift of us being aware of ourselves as the drop in the ocean, and also aware that we're connected to everything and everyone as the ocean.
Yeah.
So yesterday we have, thousands of people, individual drops around the world, and this tsunami and ocean of change.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about how Access Bars contributes to us seeing ourselves as the gift of the drop, but also connected to the oneness of the universe?
Yeah, because it ends the points of view that create you as separate from everyone and everything else. Because what all of Access does is it only makes you more of you, the being. It's not artificial, in other words. Ooh, let there be light.
Woo, light in the room.
Oh my God, this is totally working, people. The room went, woo, I'm like, all right, cool. It makes you, what it does, it lets go of the things that you have been functioning from or bought or living as that are not you. And the thing is, the idea is that we are infinite beings. And I used to hear that in some of the stuff I had done before Access, but I was like, okay, then why can't I pay rent? You know, like what, if I'm an infinite being, why can I not pay rent? They're like, well, you just need to know you're infinite. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, let me have some practical way of accessing that. Let me have a way of actually experiencing that. And as I say that, I realize that's what I got with my first bar session and all the ones after that. It's like more access to what that actually is. And we all know. And the thing about this whole conversation about yesterday and bringing a different space to things is that for me, if we're doing something, it's got to be practical. It's got to work in your life right now. It's got to work in the trenches of life. You know, because I did so many things that were like, oh yeah, changing the space and lights and didn't ever do anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why are you saying that we created this massive change when I don't feel any different? My life isn't any different. I don't have more sense of happiness, joy, or space. But the thing about Access is it's very practical. It's very pragmatic, while at the same time being weird as fuck. Which I think is so great, because the original meaning of weird was of spirit, fate, or destiny. So acknowledging that it's very practical and pragmatic, it changes your friggin' life in the areas you need it to change, and you're the one who can determine what those are with the processing. And bars changes the space from which you live your life. It actually gives you space in your life. So what that means is you walk into a situation where before you used to contract, or you're interacting with a person where you used to contract, or you look at your bank account, where you used to contract. And what happens is now you don't contract, you have space. And what that creates is you're now present with what's going on. You're not avoiding it. You're not trying to disappear because it's painful. You're like, oh, I can be present with this. And when you can be present with something, you can change it. So for me, it's gotta be practical and pragmatic, and also make you more present. Oh my God, 3 Ps. I just came up with something. 3 Ps. I'm gonna forget those, well, right about now. So anyway.
But we like 3-letter acronyms
I know,
in Access Consciousness,
exactly.
so this is good. PPP.
PPP.
So one of the things I wanted to talk with you about in this section, if you want to science geek out with me for a little bit.
I'm ready.
Which I know you like this. Okay.
I'm a science geek, I like it.
So,
I like science.
If you all didn't know, I think you are aware, I know you are aware, recently they gave the Nobel Prize
I'm aware.
to 3 quantum physicists. And we talk about with consciousness how we have an unfathomable ability to communicate and connect instantaneously that we cannot get logically.
Yes.
And basically, they now proved with science that you can have particles on opposite ends of the universe and they instantly communicate with each other.
Boom.
Which is so cool. What we've known.
Right.
And now science is like actually proving it.
Well, that's the funny part. Science eventually, hopefully, catches up with us. I mean, there are so many things that we have talked about for years, and then science goes, oh, and everybody goes, oh my God, look at that. And I'm like, we've been talking about it for 20 years. But this idea of the quantum entanglements that you're talking about, see, for me, what's interesting is one of the things I've said for a long time is your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. So if you can consider your point of view, like think of, I don't know, maybe going out in nature, or someone that you're around where you just have the space to be everything you are. That's one space from which you can function, let's say. And then think of somebody or some situation that you go into, and every single time it feels like, well, what happens with this is your point of view creates your reality. So when your point of view is this is what it's going to create, that's what it creates. But what this does, and so the quantum entanglement idea is also that if I have a point of view about something that's going to show up a certain way, what I do is I affect it to show up that way, which is so simple and once again, earth-shattering, because we keep thinking that life is happening to us. We don't realize that we are manufacturing it by what we think and what we say, because that has an energy too, and also what we do as a result of what we think and say.
So with that, so one of the things that you have said a lot, and you and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, talk about, is this capacity we have to instantly know and also to be aware of the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions
Oh, that's
of
fun.
everyone around us, whether or not we're physically close to them.
Yes.
So how did you guys come to that awareness? And then can you talk a little bit about that and maybe who does it belong to?
Oh, who does it belong to? That's my question. I don't know how they came to that awareness because that was something that was part of Access before I came along.
Wow.
And in fact, on my very first bar session, Shannon O'Hara, the one that ran my bars and quite literally saved my life, she said, hey, we've got all kinds of tools. Do you want to use them? I'm like, yes. And she wrote down, who does this belong to, on a little yellow sticky note for me. And she said, 98% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions don't belong to you. And I was like, that sounds weird. Okay. And I kind of ignored it because it was just, one of the things about Access is there's so many things you'll hear and you're like, it just doesn't fit into your box of reality. So you're like, well, it must be false because, and then you look at your box of reality and go, I hate this fucking box. So maybe I should take a few of these things in, you know? But that was me. I was like, nah, it just didn't make sense. It's like, you know, my favorite way of trying to describe something like that is where, you know, if somebody came up to you and they're like, yes, I just ate a car. And you're like, what? It's like that. It's like 98% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions don't belong to you. You're like, what? But that idea that we are that aware speaks to the fact that we are actually primarily, firstly, energetic beings. And that's a long discussion I won't go into right now. But so what happens is, like, if you ever thought of somebody and they text you, or, okay, who was thinking of whom? You know, who thought of whom, which is the chicken and which is the egg? And what's funny is people are like, oh my God, I thought of them and they texted me, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, quantum physics, dum-dum, of course. Why were you thinking of them? Because they were thinking of you, thinking about what to text you. And you pick up on it. Where were they? In another country. I know, distance is irrelevant, okay? On a quantum level, distance is irrelevant. And so, oh goodness, I could go so sciencey geeky
I know.
right now. I'm not gonna go there, okay. So who does this belong to is my question. Who is talking through me? No. And so anyway, she gave me this, and I woke up with the depression that I had had a few days later, and I'm like, oh my God, I thought it was gone this time. Shit, I knew things were different, but oh my God. I look over at my clock where I had put this little yellow sticky note. I didn't even like try to read it. I just saw, who does this belong to? And all of it went away. And I was like, I had this face again, and I was like, dude. There were no dudes around. I was just talking to whatever dude might listen, right? I'm like, dude. I mean, I cannot tell you, mind officially blown, okay? So for me, I've had a couple experiences like that with who does this belong to, and I think probably because I was gonna bring it to a lot of other people that would think it was bullshit, that I really had to know it rather than, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I had another experience where I had this guy I was treating in my chiropractic office, and I'd been treating him for months, and he was at an 8 out of 10 on the pain scale, 10 being childbirth, okay? And it was from low back pain. And what would happen is he'd go to lay down, and it would take him 5 minutes to relax before I could even start to work on him as he was lying face down, right? And I just had this experience, you know, and he comes in a few days later, and he goes, you know, and he goes to lie down, and the only thing that pops into my head is this little yellow sticky note that says, who does this belong to? So here I am, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like, hey, who does this pain belong to? And he pushes himself up instantly and goes, my wife! Again, I was like, dude! I think whoever, like consciousness, whoever his name is Dude or her name is Dude, okay? Their names are Dude, okay? And so he did this. So I asked him, I'm like, what? Tell me. He's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I never thought of this before. He said, my wife was in such intense back pain. She had injured her back. He said she was in such pain, it didn't go away, so she had a laminectomy, which is a very intense back surgery. He said that did not take the pain away, it just increased it. She was taking the equivalent of morphine to get rid of the pain, and she was half dead, walking around, and she was still sensing the pain, right? And he said, I'll never forget it. She was walking by me one day, and I thought to myself, I would do anything to get this woman I love out of pain. He said within a few, I don't know whether it was days or weeks, he said within a while, her pain started going away. And as it did, I started getting back pain. And I was like, are you kidding me? Dude, like, whoa. And so having him let this go was like, in that session, we got him over 98% of his pain. I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I got a little thing here. I'm like, in comparison to before, he's like, oh, 98%. I was like, dude. So that's the language of consciousness right now, dude. But could you imagine what it's like? Like, here I am. I became a chiropractor because I wanted to create miracles in people's bodies and lives. And I knew people that were doing it. Like, I knew these amazing healers. And here I was not having that effect. It was part of why I wanted to get the heck out of here, I wanted to get the flock out of here. And then and then these things happen. I was like, it's like all my Christmases and Hanukkahs and Kwanzas came at once, Hence my red shirt. I am now Santa Claus. Okay.
Well, and with that, one of that just amazing connection we have and our ability to take all sorts of things from other people.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just looking at that as you were saying that, because we have this amazing connection, but the way it's slanted in the world we live in is to connect to their yuck, their stuck, and their what the fuck.
Yeah.
Like we perceive the heaviness in other people. And as probably most of you watching and listening, you probably want to make people feel better. You probably want to heal them all. Well, the only resource you have until you get who does this belong to, and until you get some of these access tools and concepts, is to try to take it away, like the guy did. But what does that do? Now you're suffering. What does that do for our world? The sum total of suffering has not changed. And here's the other part. Remember, your point of view creates your reality. So somewhere there's some point of view that people have that they use to create their suffering for whatever reason. A lot of times people think it's the only way they can be loved, or they're a victim, or whatever their story is. But what happens that I've seen is we're so aware, we don't want them to hurt, we try to take it into our world, which, by the way, can we just say, dude, that we can even do that? Okay, but how often are you around other people and you feel heavy, you feel unhappy, you feel all these things? That's just that one concept right there. That is something I would like science to study. Okay, the fact that we can actually do that energetically. This energy is forming their world and their body and their worldview, and we are able to take it into our body and our life. Dude, like just that one thing right there. And this is just one of many things that we talk about in Access as though it's, like breathing, because it is to us once you get the sense of how it works. But so you take it on, and most of the time, if they have not changed the point of view they're using to create it as real, they will either remanufacture it or even intensify it so it doesn't go away because it matches their worldview. And so now you're suffering, and so are they. Which the only true solution, if you will, is more consciousness. What do I mean? Well, if you get more conscious, you don't have to take on their pain and suffering because you realize it doesn't work. Consciousness and awareness are very synonymous. If they get more conscious, they can undo what makes them believe suffering is necessary and real and true, and that it has value to them and is somehow something they must maintain. And so now, if we have more consciousness, you get lighter, they get lighter, and guess what, kids? What our world is experiencing is a sum total of all of us. The more lightness you be, the lighter our world gets. It's so friggin' simple. It's like all the drops. Like, imagine all the drops in the ocean, imagine only 2 of them are like happy drops. That's a depressing fucking ocean, Imagine now that like 90% of them are happy drops. You're like, woo! And then all the other drops are like, oh, if they're happy, okay, fine, I guess I can too.
Yeah. Well, I let you know in the story you told, your personal story, you really then asked for a miracle to show up, or you were going to be out of here.
Yep.
And yesterday I met a beautiful woman in the audience who told me a very similar story. She was in the hospital and literally dying, and on her Facebook feed came up an Access Consciousness video. She said, I don't know, I had never heard of it before, and it was about asking for a miracle. So she just asked, and the story's a bit longer, but she like instantly healed herself and was better. And can you talk about that power of asking and receiving, and how that actually, and how that may relate to quantum entanglements, but what we're doing when we ask and are willing to receive a miracle, lightness, space, all of that show up.
Yeah, let's talk about the ask, because what happens, we're a big fan of asking questions in Access. What else is possible? Big fans. Because anytime you ask a question, what you're doing is, most people are walking down this rut they've called their life, and they've walked back and forth so many times. There are walls to the left and right. And when you ask a question, it's like you open up space for something else to show up. That's you. And another fundamental concept is choice. When you make the choice to ask a question about something rather than come to conclusion. Because anytime you come to conclusion, you're stuck with what you concluded. When you ask a question, that's a choice to go, hey, universe, hey, consciousness, hey, spirit, hey, God, whatever the heck it is for you. Doesn't matter. Hey, things, hey, I'd like something different. I'm willing to allow something different even if my life changes. See, and now if you look at the situation she was in, it speaks volumes in a sense, because what most people are doing is they're not willing to have something different because they're not suffering enough yet. But if you're in the place where you're about to die, well, what do I have to lose? Okay, I'll have a miracle. You know what I mean? But isn't that weird? So she has the power, but prior to getting to the point where she's got this terrible thing going on, where she's gonna leave, she's not willing to allow it. I understand that one personally, okay? So this is the interesting part then. It's like at what point do we allow ourselves to receive something different constantly because we're aware that something different always will create greater for us? And so the idea here with the quantum entanglements is you're not, see, here's the other interesting part is geeking out. Okay. The other interesting part is they talk about quantum entanglements, and the only way they are able to study it, and I mean, it's a miracle that they could study it, right? And you're like, whoa, that's amazing. Wow, you should get the Nobel Prize. Oh my God, they did. But what they're not talking about, they're talking about quantum entanglement, the subatomic particle to subatomic particle, okay? But what they're not talking about is you in quantum entanglements with everything you are willing to be an influencer of.
Yeah.
What? Wait a minute. What are you talking about, bro? See, I told you, geeky. Okay, but what does that mean? That's basically an explanation that everything you are willing to be connected to, you have an effect on. Whoa, dude. Okay, so now some of you, your brains are like, you're like, I thought I was gonna follow what they're saying, but I don't understand a word they're talking about. Yeah, but that's actually the energy of it. That energy or space, similar thing, it's like the space of what we're talking about is exactly that, where your mind can't follow because it's not linear. It's a direct engagement with the energetics of what this is. And we, once again, are energetic beings. So what we do, it's kind of like, have you ever been around somebody who was angry?
Yes.
Oh my God, me too. When you're around somebody who's angry, what happens? Do you notice you kind of get it affects you physically, right? Well, let's look at that. That's like a quantum entanglement right there, okay? Their energetic state is affecting yours. Have you been around somebody who's really happy and grateful?
Yes.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Like all these happy, grateful people? Oh my God, it's so good. That creates a different space, right?
Yeah.
So we affect each other energetically all the time, and people want to pretend that doesn't exist, as though, no, the world is linear. No, it's fucking not. The world is miraculously, magically, quantumly entangled, and we keep acting like that doesn't exist. We keep acting like miracles don't exist. Well, what's a miracle? Something that science can't explain, basically. Guess what? Science can't explain most of what's actually going on in the world.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like scientists. Not saying that. Assholes. No, just kidding. Totally kidding. I know there's some scientists watching, and I just playing. That's all.
Can I just say, you're so fun to interview because you always, it's like you know the things that I would like to ask.
You mean almost
Like
like an embodiment of the quantum entanglement?
Almost, yes, like that.
Weird.
Well, you know when you when you talked about this willingness to be connected and what we can then affect, you have, I believe it is your most famous video on YouTube, which is called.
I'm a
Hello?
YouTuber, amongst other things. I Googled myself the other day, and actually, I was Googled by someone I know. Her. No. Somebody on my team Googled me and said, "Oh my God, you're a YouTuber." I'm like, I've been a YouTuber for like 15 years. But Google knows it now. It's kind of like it's scientifically proven.
That's right.
And also, my sister is my wife.
If you Google it.
I'm like, just because I live in Texas don't mean I got to marry my sister. What the hell's going on here? Anyway, I digress. So if you see my wife on Google, it's my sister. That's right. Don't tell her husband that she got another man, okay? And please do not tell my nieces and nephews that we're married. That would seriously mess them up in the head. Oh my God, I want to do that. I want to go tell them, by the way, your mom and I are married. And then we'll run their bars and try to get them over it. Anyway, sorry. I digressed again.
I love when you digress. So the video that I am mentioning is the one 7 things the universe would tell you if you were listening.
I love that video personally.
I do too. And you have in there 7 different things or questions, but I want to read this one so I actually get it correct. You say, you are a sleeping giant. There's so much more available in you, as you, and to you than you ever imagined possible. I'd like to ask you about us being those giants, and what all of this, like access consciousness, access bars, questions, contribute to us like wakening that giant up.
Oh, I love that. Here, I need to start by saying being that giant isn't what most people think it is. It's not what we're taught by the world we grew up in, which is you're a giant if you're a billionaire. Have you seen most of the billionaires on the planet? Giant or not so much? See, for me, the giant that you are, and some of you are like, but I still want to be a billionaire. Go for it. But be a billionaire that uses that to change the world for the greater. What about that? See, that's what I see as us. And I know firsthand how it is to feel like you are not big enough to have an impact on anything. And that is one of the biggest lies that we buy. Because your impact is not just personal. It's not just about you. As you start to become more aware of what you are capable of, you don't realize it, but that whole quantum entanglement idea, you become a space that empowers others to know what they are capable of just by you existing on this planet. And by you interacting with them also, if that occurs too. But remember, we're all connected. Like, it's not you don't just affect the people that you talk to and work with and live with and all that. The space you choose to be is one drop in the ocean of the space this planet gets to be. And if we can recognize that it's not just being a sleeping giant, if we can look from a slightly different perspective than most people look from. Okay, so I'm gonna try this and see if it works. I don't know, I'm trying something new. Okay, no, just what would have the greatest impact worldwide? One really strong drop that is committed and keeping out all the rest of the drops and just gonna do their thing? Or a drop that has the willingness to communicate and contribute to and receive from all the other drops? I'm crying because that's the world. That's the world I see us inching toward choosing as we choose more consciousness, because that right there is the embodiment of an as consciousness, where you don't have to separate anymore. You don't have to do judgment anymore. You don't have to make other people wrong. You don't have to make you wrong. You don't have to try to prove that you're right when you feel you're wrong. None of that is even in your world. It's irrelevant, or unrelevant, I guess I should say. The sleeping giants that we are the beings that are actually the drops that are willing to allow the true communion, if you will, and connection with all the other drops, and empower them to the best of, to their willingness to be empowered, but also to see the greatness of each freaking drop out there, and realize that they may not see it yet, and you don't have to try to get them to choose it, but your acknowledgement that they are greater than they think creates a space for them to actually step into it when they are ready. I'm gonna cry all over the place.
And you know how you just mentioned, like, it seems like we're inching along towards that. And I know Gary Douglas founded Access Consciousness.
I love him.
I love him too. He's going to be
So
here in just a
wonderful.
couple minutes. And, you know, he was the creator of Access Bars, who was alone in his awareness for so many years.
Alone, man.
Alone. And he kept going. And he kept going. And he...
Sorry. I was just looking at, because you see Access now, and you can't, once again, it's like Access ate a car. No. You know, it's like, it's such a, you're like, you just can't fathom that he started Access in his garage in Santa Barbara, okay? That's literally, like, he had 10, 12 people, 20 sometimes, and just kept putting one foot in front of the other because he was willing to follow his knowing, even when everybody else said, you're a nutter, okay? Could you imagine, like, we're talking about what is outside the realm of people's reality, right? Access consciousness 30 plus years ago. Hey! Oh.
He started 3 people.
3 people. 3 people, he just said.
If you are not live in Houston, Gary Douglas just walked in the back of the room.
Yeah. No, I think they saw it on screen,
Oh,
which
great.
is just awesome. And I look at that, I look at the courage, the balls of steel it took to keep going and follow a path that nobody else got. And how do I know nobody else got it? Because I met some of the people that were working with Gary and Access when I started 22 years ago. And these people would say they got it, and they would do the exact opposite. And I was like, this is amazing. It's almost like they're working against Gary, but Gary keeps moving forward. And I'm like, this is awesome. That's the life. That's what I want to have. No matter who seems to be working against you, just keep moving forward.